Hey guys, I'm back with another episode of Corpse Floods Game Floods. In this episode, I'll be sharing my pickups and a bit of my experience from the 2019 Midwest Gaming Classic. There's plenty to go through, so we'll get right to it right after the break.
Let's go buy some games!
Alright, now let's get right into it. The Midwest Gaming Classic was last weekend as of filming this, and it was held in Milwaukee, Wisconsin as always, and it was an awesome time as always. And somehow I managed to pick up more this year than last year. So leading up to the convention, I had a trip out of town a few days before, and I figured, hey, I don't want to be too rusty going into MGC, so I think I'm going to do a bit of shopping. And I went to an EB Games, and they had a buy one get two sale on the PS3 and Xbox 360 games they had. So I said, hey, what a place to start. So first three games I picked up were Zoid's Assault for Xbox 360. It's like a tactical RPG type game with like mechs and different like war machines. I have the other one on GameCube, and it was a pretty cool game. And I've played a bit of this before. It's nothing special, but it's something to add to the 360 collection. Next up, I picked up King of Fighters 13. I love the King of Fighters series, and this is the better of the ones that's on the 360. I have 12, and it's okay, but 13 is definitely the better one to go with. So now I have both. And the third one I went with was Death Smiles. An anime style shoot 'em up. I'm all about the shmups. It's one of my favorite type of games, so more of those is always a good thing. Next up, I went with three PS3 games. The first one I picked up was Catherine. It's a game I've actually wanted for quite a while. I've been holding out to find the 360 version, but I've never been able to find it. I'll still pick one up if I find it, but as for now, that'll do. They're coming out with a remaster on the PS4 in a few months here, so I might pick that up too. We'll see. I'll check this one out and see how much I like it first. Next one I got was Extreme Legends Dynasty Warriors 8. I don't know, this is some kind of update of the original Dynasty Warriors 8. I assume it's more like a deluxe edition, kind of added characters, maybe levels, so we'll see. Don't know too much about it. The third one is something I have already, but I picked up from my friend Church from the Game Grinder, because he's a huge fan of the series, and that's Metal Gear Solid 4 Guns of the Patriots Limited Edition. Yeah, I picked it up a few months ago, and he mentioned that he didn't have it, so I said I'd be out and look for it if I could find another one for him. And luckily, I was able to snag it as part of that deal. So basically a free game, so hooked him up. Other than that, at the same store, I picked up a pretty sweet Tekken shirt. I'm sure you'll see in one of my videos coming up. And a David Bowie shirt for my wife, and they were like $2 each. So altogether, all that stuff cost me about $28. So I thought it was a pretty awesome warm-up leading into MGC. So that's pretty much all I picked up before MGC. Then going in next, some trades I did with friends and some things that they brought me that I kind of had waiting for me from a couple months ago. First trade I did was with Chris, the old-ass retro gamer, and that these ones are actually ones he found at Half Price Books, and he kind of messaged a group of a few of us that were going to be there and asked if any of us were interested, and of course I was really interested in these, as I never get TurboGrafx games. So first one was Legendary Axe 2. I had the first one already. everything I own for the TurboGrafx I actually own because my wife had one growing up. So I'm lucky enough to have a pretty decent selection there. And second one is Bloody Wolf. I want to play that so bad. I've seen a couple of videos on it and it looks really cool. And the third one is one I consider kind of a must-have for the TurboGrafx, and that's Blazing Lasers. As I said before, shmups are something I'm really into, so I'm glad to get that. There's a ton of cool ones on the TurboGrafx. Unfortunately, the price keeps me away from a bunch of them, but if I see them and they're a decent price, I'll definitely pick them up. I just never see them around here. Next up were a couple of trades we set up. We had a panel this year at the Midwest Gaming Classic, and on the Saturday night, a bunch of us that were on the panel, as well as a bunch of our YouTube friends, had a dinner at a restaurant called the 42 Ale House, which is a cool like gaming themed restaurant slash like kind of like bar and grill kind of thing. We did one last year there too, but this year we kind of set up a trade night to go with it, and he put these up for his trades, and I was interested in both of them. They're both limited run games. The first one is Crawl, which is it looks like an 8-bit dungeon crawler. Kind of reminds me of Gauntlet, so here's hoping that's what it is. And the second one is Mecho Tales. I think this is kind of like a platformer or something. I looked up a video on it. I don't really remember what it is now, but I think it was a platformer. They both look real cool. He gave me the cards and all the stuff that they come with, so that was pretty cool. Next up, I did a trade at someone else with someone else at that same dinner, and his name is Hodge, a new friend I just made. First two things here are some 3D printed cartridge ornaments, and the first one is Earthbound. So I picked up a copy of Earthbound. Obviously not functional, but he said his wife makes these and they're really cool. And the other one was Little Samson. He has a whole bunch of them. I just grabbed a couple for now. I think I traded a copy of Super Mario Bros. 2 for it and whatever. And the other games I got from him, one was Mario Party, or Paper Mario Sticker Star. I hear it's like the weakest of the Mario Party games. It's like, or what, I keep saying Mario Party. Paper Mario games. I own every other one and I've enjoyed them all to a point. The first two are definitely the best ones. And the second one is one I actually kind of just needed the case for. I've had this game forever. And that's Mario Kart 7. I've had a card-only version since pretty much right when I got my 3DS, but yeah, I haven't even put it into my app that I have it because no case, so it just kind of sits in a 3DS all the time. And having two copies of that's going to be no problem, as I got the kids 2DSs and they're big Mario Kart fans, so that's awesome to finally have all of the Mario Kart games boxed and complete. And the second game, or third game I got from him, was a limited run game called Dragon Fantasy. This looks more like a Super Nintendo RPG, and if you know anything about me, that's something super awesome that I'd be super interested in, so I'm looking forward to checking that out right away. I actually had to open that one right away because the disc was loose in the case, but no damage, so we're good there. And another trade I did with Musty Hobbit of Second Breakfast. Got quite a few games here. First one is Slay, Steel Lancer Arena International, mech fighting game. Mechs are awesome, so thought I'd check that out. Next is a fighting game. We got Guilty Gear XX Core. Love my fighting games. The Guilty Gear games are usually pretty awesome, so that's another one I'd love to add to the collection. I got 2 or 3 of the Guilty Gear games already, and I enjoy the ones I've got, so awesome. And the next one is Magna Carta Tears of Blood. I've got Magna Carta 2 for the 360 already, so it's good to have the first one. I believe it's the first one. And the next game is Zone of the Enders, the Second Runner. I have the Zone of the Enders collection for the 360 also, but I'm interested in getting both of the original ones, so I think that's the second one, I believe. Next up, I got a Genesis game, and that is Steel Empire, which is a side-scrolling shmup that I've heard really good things about. Case is a little faded. There's no manual, but the card itself is in really good shape. Little sticker on it, but I can get that off, no prob. So that was an awesome trade. Next up, so I drove down to Minneapolis before we headed to Milwaukee and met my friend Church of the Game Grinder. And as is pretty much customary, anytime we hang out, we kind of, I give him some doubles, he gives me some stuff he doesn't want or whatever. We do kind of a gift exchange. My wife usually kind of laughs like, you guys are the only friends I know that always have like a gift exchange when you hang out. First thing, it's actually something I messaged him about when I was out of town at that EB Games. I was not sure if he had this yet. And he said, actually, I've got two if you want one. So he saved me some money there. And that is the Totaku Dark Souls Artorias figure. So that's going to look really awesome along with my other ones. I've got about 5 or 6 of them now. And that's one I've been wanting for a bit, so that's awesome. And the next two are a couple of games. I got him to order me from Limited Run because he was doing an order, and that is Golf Story. He has an uncanny talent for grabbing the Limited Run games he wants and having no problem getting them. Like, I hear other people complaining like, they were out when I tried to get it and all that. So I always trust him with picking up the limited game releases that I'm interested in, so I know that it's basically on lockdown. Next up is a VR game. I looked around at EB Games because this is a EB Games / GameStop exclusive VR game, and we're both very big into VR. This is another thing linked to Dark Souls because it's from Software's Deracine. I'm loving my PSVR so far, and this looked like a really cool, kind of unique game, and he says it's pretty cool, so I can't wait to jump into that. That's going to be one of the next games I jump into. And this next stack is kind of just random stuff. His parents work for a thrift store, and they hook him up like constantly with all types of games, and these were ones he was not really that interested in. He was going to trade in at a store or bring to our trade night, and I was like, well, would you mind if I pick through a few of these? And he said, whatever, go ahead. And I got some pretty cool stuff here. I don't know why he wanted to get rid of some of this. Maybe he already had it on different systems or something. First up is a Game Boy Advance game, actually the only Game Boy Advance game I've got here, and that's Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 3. Super blurry, but that's what it is. Next up, the only PSP game I got on this trip, and that's Afterburner Black Falcon. I love my PSP, but I never seem to go after games for it, so I like the old Afterburner games, and hopefully this holds up to them. Next up is a super random GameCube game, but it's one I didn't have, so I was more than happy to grab it, and that's The Amazing Island. Yeah, it looks almost like Pokemon-ish. It looks like a Pokemon Snap type game. I don't know. I have no idea about it, but I'll look into it. Huh. Next up is another thing I don't know much about, but I do have a few of these games, and that's Yu-Gi-Oh! The Duelist of Roses. Not big into Yu-Gi-Oh! When it comes to collectible card games. Magic the Gathering is definitely my game. I sold off my collection a couple of years ago to make room for my other collections of stuff, because I'm always collecting something, but video games have basically taken over those other hobbies. Next game we got is another kind of rando title, and that's Sean Palmer's Pro Snowboarder. Gotta love Tony Hawk opening the floodgates for a pro from every one of the sort of extreme sports to get their own game. I've never played that one, but I usually kind of like snowboarding games to a point. They're kind of a good turn off your brain and play for a few hours a game. I do love the Tony Hawk games though. I've never been a fan of skateboarding, but Tony Hawk games kick ass. Next one is a game I am experienced with, and that is Star Wars The Force Unleashed. I have it for 360. I love it for 360, and I kind of want to know how it would play it on a previous gen system. So gonna check out the PS2 version of that. Next up is The Club, which is kind of like a third-person shooter game. I remember playing the demo from this back in the day and not being too impressed, but it's a game I don't have for the 360, and I'm always on the look out for 360 games. It's my biggest console collection is that. I've got over 500 games for it now. It's the console I got my world record on, so I am always looking for more titles for that. Next up is an original Xbox game, and that's Fusion Frenzy. It's kind of like a poor man's Mario Party with like no known characters, but it's welcome. I believe the first one was pretty good, and the second one was, I've played that one, and it's kind of terrible, but it's like hilariously bad. So whatever. Next one is Mortal Kombat Armageddon, which is an awesome game. So I actually didn't have this one, and I can't believe it because I like this one a lot. It's got all types of like mini games in it. There's a kart racer and everything on this game. I don't know why I don't own that one yet, because it's not particularly expensive or hard to find. I did have a copy of it before. The disc was just destroyed on it though, so it's good to have a good condition copy of that. And next is another kind of like a party game, I guess, and that's Sega All-Stars Tennis. The only kind of sports games I like are these kind of like mascot ones, like Mario Tennis, Mario whatever sports. They're usually a pretty awesome game. And actually that about does it for things I got from people that were outside of the convention. So I'll just jump right into what other stuff I got. We'll start out with some original Xbox stuff. I didn't pick up too much. Mostly just cheaper stuff. I just kind of saw. I saw an AVGN episode about this game, and it made me kind of need to have it. And I saw it in like a dollar bin, so snagged it like right away. And that's Drake of the 99 Dragons. This game looks god awful. I don't know why I needed to own it so bad, but I did, and now I do. My next original Xbox pickup, which was the only other one I got at MGC, is significantly better, and that's Marvel vs. Capcom 2. Huge Marvel fan. I really like the Capcom fighting games, like Street Fighter and all that kind of stuff, so I played this tons before, but I've never owned it for some reason. Probably because it's kind of a pricey game. Probably the Xbox copy is one of the cheaper ones. The Dreamcast one and the PS2 one are kind of always fluctuating, but usually on the higher end, so I've just never bothered to pick them up, especially when I've got it on like the Xbox 360 arcade. Next one was one I thought I didn't own, but I do own, and I should have known that I own, and that's Super Paper Mario, the Nintendo Selects version. So I guess I've got the original and the Selects, if that's a thing. I don't think I'm really going to go after Nintendo Selects, but whatever. Next game I got was WarioWare Smooth Moves. I've got the other Wario game, but the WarioWare games are usually pretty funny, at least, even if they're not that good. So we'll check that one out. Next one is one I always seem to have it in my hand when I'm in like a game store, and I always seem to put it back in, to get something else, or like, I'm kind of getting a lot. And this time I finally decided to grab it because it was super cheap, and that's Dead Space Extraction. Love the Dead Space games, so that's why I keep picking this up, and I don't know why I put it back. So I'm going to play it and find out if I should have put it back. Hopefully it's good. Another game that I had, but I had just a disc only, so I figured I'd grab, especially with how cheap it is, knowing how bad it is, and that's Resident Evil, The Umbrella Chronicles. I've only played a bit of it, but it's kind of well known for being a pretty crappy Resident Evil game, so whatever. I got it in case now. I can add it to the collection. I'm only missing a couple more for the full collection. And the next three are all from the same series. I don't know, I sometimes like playing them, sometimes they're just, I can't get into them, so they're a really hit and miss series for me. The first one is Harvest Moon and the Tree of Tranquility. Next is Harvest Moon Animal Parade. And the third one is Harvest Moon Magical Melody. I believe this one's also on the GameCube. If not, there's something really close to that for the name of a GameCube Harvest Moon game. Anyway, like I said, they're kind of hit and miss games for me. I liked the original one. I don't mind the 64 version. They're just kind of whatever games. Whatevs. Kind of going along with that, I got Rune Factory Frontier, which is kind of I believe it's like a spin-off of the Harvest Moon games. So I don't own any of those, so I thought I'd give that one a try. Next up, I believe, is the last game I need for this series. Not something I'm going out of my way to get, but that's Driver Parallel Lines. I actually didn't know this one existed. I've got the 3 originals, the Game Boy Color one. I've got the one that came out on PS3 and Xbox 360. And yeah, this one just kind of skipped me by. Not hearing much about it. I'm kind of curious if it's any good. Apparently you go throughout time. I don't know. Yeah, it's on the backlog, that's for sure. The next 3 games are the only 360 games I grabbed, besides, you know, in the trades and stuff. First one up being The Amazing Spider-Man 2. Huge Spider-Man fan, and I actually own this game twice already on PS4 and Xbox One. But like I said, any 360 game I can get, especially for cheap, I'm going to go after. And I've got every other superhero game for the 360 already. So that was like the last one I needed. So that's kind of like a subset complete for me. Next one is one I'm also kind of surprised that I don't have, because I've seen it a bunch of times. I think it's been in crappy condition. That's why I haven't picked it up, or like more than I was willing to pay. And that is Alice Madness Returns. I have it digitally on my 360, and I've played a bit of it. And it's a really cool game, especially like the... all the level design is really cool, kind of like I don't know, just mind-bendingly cool. And after that, my last 360 game is Family Game Night 2 and 3 pack. I got the first one. Why would you play board games when you could play video games of a board game? That's what I always say. I never really say that, but whatevs. And next is a massive stack of PS2 games. These were going pretty cheap. Almost every one of these was just like in some kind of like bundle bin, you know, it would be like 4 for $10 or something like that. So I snagged a whole bunch of pretty cool looking ones. First up is Crash Twinsanity. I've got all the older Crash games. I've heard the newer, like the PS2 and Xbox 360 kind of ones, weren't really up to snuff, but whatever. For how cheap they were, I figured I'd check them out. The second one is Crash of the Titans. I believe this one's on the 360, so if I see that, I'll have to upgrade to that copy eventually. But yeah, I think it's something the kids would like. The kids seem to like the Crash and Spyro games. I was kind of a little older when they came out, so they weren't really something I played a whole lot of back in the PS1 days. So it would be kind of something cool to visit and play with them. They're getting more into games, which is awesome in my eyes. Anyway, next up, we've got a Capcom game, Chaos Legion. Looks like kind of a Devil May Cry type game. And it says right on the back, if you love Devil May Cry, you'll love Chaos Legion. Alright, we'll see how that holds up. I've never heard of it, so it's either one of those hidden gem type games, or it's lying to me. Next up is another game I can't believe I didn't have yet, but I got the second one last year at MGC, so this year I picked up Time Splitters 1. So I'm excited to get that. I've always wanted to play those games, and I just never kind of picked them up. I've seen them for cheap a bunch of times. I don't know why I've never grabbed them. Next up is Armored Core 2 and Armored Core 3. I believe I have 1 to 5 of the mainline series of this now. I got the first one for PS1, and I got 4 and 5 for the 360. You can't ever have too much battling mechs, ever, or robots. Next up, we got Legion, The Legend of Excalibur. Looks like kind of a dungeon crawler Hopefully something along the lines of Baldur's Gate or something. I'm sure not that good, but here's hoping. Next up is another game I've been kind of curious of for quite a while, and that's PsyOps, the Mindgate Conspiracy. It's like a third-person shooter where you've got all types of like mind powers, like psychokinetic or whatever, where you can like lift people up, and I think you can like ignite stuff, telekinesis, mind drain, pyrokinesis, so all types of cool powers to play around with and switch it up. Next up is another one. I have some of the older ones on Super Famicom, and that's Romancing Saga. So a good old Square Enix RPG. Can't go wrong with those. Very often anyway. Another one is going to be definitely played with me and the kids. Probably quite a lot because they are very big into the Teen Titans. And that's Teen Titans. It's you can play up to 4 players. I have the multi-tap, so I'll have to either watch all 4 kids play or I'll leave the youngest one out because he's only 1 and he won't care anyway. Could just give him a unplugged controller. I'm looking forward to playing that. I accidentally forgot to pick up a Game Boy Advance one I saw about a month ago, and I felt really bad about it. My daughter was all excited to find it, and then I totally dropped the ball. So this is my make it up to her game. Anyway, the next game I have is Devil Kings. I have no idea about this game. It looks sort of Devil May Cry. It's from the creators of Resident Evil and Devil May Cry, being a Capcom game, it says. It looks sort of Devil May Cry, sort of like Dynasty Warriors. I don't see any gigantic crowds on the back, but it's a game I'm really curious to try out. Next up is another one I've wanted for quite a while. It's kind of getting up there in price, but I found this one for really cheap, and it's complete too, so that's awesome, in great shape. That is Fallout, the Brotherhood of Steel. Big Fallout fan. Never played this one. Actually, I only found out about it maybe like 2 years ago, so I've kind of been on the hunt for it, hoping to just stumble upon it, but I stumbled upon it at the right time this year at MGC. And next one is based on an old series that I like a lot of the older games of, and I've never played this one, and that's Shining Force Neo. I've heard the later games kind of like stray from what made Shining Force good, so I kind of held off on it. That was a decent price, so why not? And then the last PS2 game I got was Grim Grimoire. While I was looking at it, a couple of my friends, Church and Chris, were like, "Oh, dude, that's a pretty cool game. Definitely grab that." And it was a decent price, so I thought I'd definitely take them up on that. I'm not sure exactly what it is. It looks like it's a kind of like a platformer, maybe Metroidvania type game. Anyway, looks awesome. Can't wait to try it out. Alright, next up, gonna go with my few Genesis games I snagged. First up, we got Gargoyles. When I first started getting back into retro gaming, I was emulating a bunch of stuff to check it out, and my wife is a big Gargoyles fan. I like Gargoyles too back when it was on, and I had no idea there was a game, and that's a pretty sweet game. I've been kind of keeping an eye out for a long time, and that's the first time I saw it, so snatched that right up. Next up is a game I actually have a repro of, and I love it. I love the series, and that's Contra Hard Corps, just announced to be on the Sega Genesis Mini that's coming out later this year, and I am stoked. It's also on the Contra Collection that's coming out in a few months digitally on the newer consoles, so awesome. Capcom and Konami, I don't know, Konami's getting good at like putting out their older stuff, but they're not really putting out any newer stuff, so Konami still kind of sucks in my eyes, but it's better than nothing, I guess. Next up is a game called Mercs. Unfortunately, I didn't even remember, but I had just gotten this in my retro game treasure boxes, so I basically just bought it for a cart upgrade and a case. I got it for cheap, so I can't be that upset. It is what it is. I should have checked my app because it was in my app. next game is from a series that I basically just heard about. Well, kind of found out more about. I've heard of it before, but I've never really kind of checked in on it. And that is Valis 3. Right before going to MGC, we were playing with my friend Church's SNES Classic, and Valis 4 was on it. And I was like, man, this game looks badass. I'm going to keep an eye out for it. And the other one's at MGC, and I kind of did some research and found out the other games are on Genesis and TurboGrafx. So I was like, whatever, I'll look for pretty much any of them I can find. And unfortunately, Valis 3 was the only one I could find, but it was a decent price, so I was happy nonetheless. And my last Genesis pickup of MGC is a pretty big one. It's one I've wanted for quite a while, like a long time, like basically since N64 days, and that is Michael Jackson's Moonwalker. I used to kind of joke about this, like, oh, I can't believe he's got a game and all this, and then I played it at a friend's house randomly, and it's actually pretty fun. Yeah, I did a big trade, and this was one of the games that I grabbed with my trade credit, and I'm pretty stoked to have it. It's complete, it's in excellent condition, so why not? It's a big game I didn't think I'd ever own unless I just found it in a bundle, so happy to have that. And next up, we'll go through my N64 pickups. I got some kind of bigger ones that I've been wanting but not really wanting to shell out the price on. I'm trying to complete my Castlevania collection, and this is one of the last ones I needed, and that is Castlevania Legacy of Darkness. The other N64 Castlevania game is complete crap. I've never actually gotten to play this one, but I've heard it's only kind of like a slight upgrade of the other one, so I'm willing to give it a shot. I'm not expecting too much, but I hope I'm pleasantly surprised. Next one is another thing I'm a big fan of, and that is Transformers Beast Wars Transmetals. I have played a bit of this. It was a long time ago, but I remember it actually being kind of trash. It's another game I grabbed with my I think I grabbed all these N64 games actually, now I think of it, with my credit from that big trade I mentioned, so no harm done there. This next one is definitely the most expensive of the three that I picked up, and that is Worms Armageddon. I have no idea why this game is so expensive. It's probably just not a lot of people bought it, because I've got it for the PS1 already. Alright game, I don't mind it, but it's way cheaper on PS1. So I'm glad to have that out of the way and not to have actually had to pay out of pocket for it. That is amazing. But that's my 3 games towards my complete N64 collection. I still got the more expensive games, but there's a couple out of the way anyway. Next up on my NES is one I've wanted for a long time. Got a couple stickers on it, but they're pure nostalgia, and it actually helped me get a pretty good deal on it, and that is Shadow of the Ninja. I love this game. I played a bunch of it through emulating. Chris, the old ass retro gamer, snatched it last year for a really decent price. I was jealous then, so I was like, next year I'm grabbing one. Well, I was actually trying to grab one then, but I didn't find another one for a good price. So this year I finally got it. Next up, I believe my next 3 games are also games I grabbed with all that credit from that trade. First up being Vice Project Doom. It was another one I was kind of on the watch for this year. I didn't really have a comprehensive list of what I was looking for. It was just kind of like, I don't know, games. I was looking to kind of finish off a couple of my sets that I was going for, like Castlevania and Resident Evil, and there's just other rando games. I was like, I knew it when I saw it, basically. Another big one I've wanted for quite a long time, and that is Dragon Warrior 4. Now the only Dragon Warrior for NES I'm missing is 3. I've had 1 and 2 forever. I never really wanted to shell out the price that 3 and 4 go for. 3 is significantly less expensive. Basically, it's 2 for 1. And this next one is another one I never thought I would get for the going price. and I feel like I got really lucky getting it, and that is Gargoyles Quest 2. I'm so stoked to have that game. It's a really fun game, and it's a spin-off of Ghouls and Ghosts, or not Ghouls and Ghosts, Ghosts and Goblins on the NES, so that's awesome. And as I was saying, I was trying to get the last couple Castlevania games I needed off my my list, and some of these are upgrades. The first one was one I needed, and I got the best version I could get of it, and that is Castlevania 2 Belmont's Revenge, signed by the cover artist Tom Dubois. Basically the Konami guy who did all the cool Konami covers for Castlevania, Contra, and like countless other games, like so many of the cool games, Turtles in Time. Anyway, there was someone there selling prints and some signed games of his, and I went crazy when I saw it. I was like, because I had no idea they were going to be there. I grabbed a couple prints. I'll show those off at the end of the video, but I was super stoked to get not only get a game I needed, but to have it signed. So that's super cool. I don't even know how I'm going to display that yet, but I've got to do something cool with that. Next up is one I basically needed the case for. I had a cart that was kind of rough, and that's Castlevania Mirror of Fate, Lords of Shadow. I like the Lords of Shadow games. The first one's a lot better than the second one. The second one was had a lot of trouble during development, so they got kind of a crappy game as a result, but I still liked it for the most part. Next up is one I also have, but I needed a case for, and that is Castlevania The Dawn of Sorrow. Yeah, I've already got rid of both of the extra carts I had, so no worries there. Made a couple extra bucks back. Next up is another one that completes a set, and that is Valkyrie Profile Covenant of the Plume. I have one, I have two, I have the PSP game, now I've got the DS game, so awesome. Next up is another one. It was kind of just like a throw-in with some other stuff I bundled together, and that's Iron Man for DS. No idea if this is any good. I'm betting it's probably crap, but I love my superheroes, and I'm always happy to add another superhero game to the collection. Not much for PS1, which is kind of a bummer for me. I was actually kind of more on the lookout for Super Nintendo and some good PS1 stuff. Yeah, I don't know why I didn't pick any up. I think everything was just kind of like more than I was willing to pay, or not what I was looking for. First up is a total random, and that is Grind Session, which is basically a total Tony Hawk ripoff, just not as good. My brother and I used to have a demo disc from PlayStation Magazine, I think it was, that had a demo, like just one level and I think two skaters you could use. And him and I used to play this for hours, because you could play it two-player, I believe. And I finally saw the game, and I bought it back in the day, and I was like, oh man, we were gonna tear this game up. And it turns out like the best level in the game was the one that was in the demo. So we just ended up playing that a whole bunch, and yeah, the game's honestly pretty ass, but whatever. It's kind of a nostalgia thing. I had to have it back, and it was only like $2 or something. So no worries there. Next one is a significantly better game, and one I've been kind of on the lookout for, and that is Sega Frontier 2. I've got the first one, so more Squaresoft PS1 goodness is always welcome. Next up, the only PS3 games I got, first up, was House of the Dead Overkill. Chris, the old-ass retro gamer, and I went into the arcade hall on the first night on Friday, and there was a PS3 hooked up with House of the Dead 4 on it, and nobody I talked to about House of the Dead 4 even knew it existed. We thought it was like some kind of import. I tried looking it up on Amazon, it wasn't on there. Turns out it's just a digital only game. It was awesome, so I definitely have to get a PlayStation card and go buy that, because we had a lot of fun on that. And this is the only other one that I didn't have, so I snagged that for really, really cheap. It was in like one of those, like I said, those combo bins. So I snagged that. These two, I think I got 2 for $15. First one is a fighting game, Under Night in Birth. Yeah, Church and Chris both told me this is a really cool fighting game. I guess Chris heard about it from Radical Reggie, so I trust Radical Reggie's judgment on that for sure. And the next one is one that I have, I believe it's the 2 games before it, and that's Record of Agrest Wars 2. I have 0, and then the first one just called Record of Agrest War. So I guess the second one wasn't available on the 360, so I've got the first 2 on 360 and this one on PS3 now. So kind of sucks to have them all on different systems, but is what it is. Next up, as I said, what my main focus I wanted to get was Super Nintendo games, and on my end of the first day I realized I'd only grabbed 1 Super Famicom and 1 Super Nintendo game. So overall I only grabbed 2 Super Famicom games, and the first was Ogre Battle. I saw it for $5 and I figured, you know what, I've wanted Ogre Battle for a long time, so $5, whatever. Even if I have to read some kind of translation, I'll play it. And the second one is one I know I don't need translations to play, and that is Front Mission Gun Hazard. I've almost bought a repro of this a bunch of times. Like, it's been in my cart on various sites, just waiting for me to pull the trigger on, and now I can pull the trigger all I want. It's not the same as the other Front Mission games. It's not like a strategy game. It's actually like a running gun, more like a Contra or a Cybernator type game. So I saw it, I can't remember, in some kind of video, like probably like 4 years ago, and I've wanted it since then, and I saw it just sitting at the front of the imports and I snatched it right up. Super excited. The rest are all Super Nintendo games, and I would consider them my highlight. First up is, fittingly enough, The First Samurai. Speaking of playing on the SNES Classic at Church's house, we played this game, and it's not good by any standard. It's actually kind of bad, but we had some good laughs at it, so I was like, I'm totally going to pick that up. Turns out I already got that in my Retro Game Treasure box just a couple of weeks ago, and I was like, why does this look familiar? And for some reason I had my phone on me and I didn't check my app, so it's a double, so it's going to be a gift to Church next time I see him for our next gift exchange. So only two doubles I grabbed, not too bad. I should have been 0, but whatever. I got it for a really cheap price, so I can't complain. Next up is one I've wanted for quite a while, and that is Skyblazer, one of the coolest platformers on the Super Nintendo that I've played. I definitely recommend it. Check it out if you haven't heard of it before. Next up is Joe and Mac. Probably one of the cheaper games I grabbed. I just didn't have it. I have the second one I actually got in Retro Game Treasure, which is amazing because it's like a pretty pricey game. So it was a big surprise to get that. And next up is one that I have on the Genesis, but I believe the Super Nintendo version is better because you can do co-op on it, and it's a different game. That's Pirates of Darkwater. More co-op, the better, is what I always say. So can't go wrong with that. And this next one is the second in a series which leaves me with only one more I need, and that is Brawl Brothers from the Rushing Beat series. It's part 2. I have Rival Turf, which is part 1. I don't know why they renamed them in North America. They're just known as Rushing Beat 1 and 2 and something else overseas. I don't know why they did that. Anyway, that one was part of they were like a $10 each or 3 for $20. Some guy was doing a fire sale on the last day, so I snagged that one and these next 2 games for $20. And there were a couple ones that I've been kind of keeping an eye on. The first one is Maui Mallard in Cold Shadow. A little bit of a tongue twister there, or maybe I'm just tired. And the second one is the game that Resident Evil was built upon its source code, believe it or not, and that is Goof Troop. Capcom Disney games are always awesome. This game is a lot of people have said is the best co-op, one of the best, not the best, one of the best co-op games on the Super Nintendo, and it's relatively cheap, so I've never seen it. I finally snagged a copy and I was super happy about it. Want to check that out. That's a really weird piece of trivia, though, that I can't believe the first Resident Evil was built on Goof Troop's source code. That's amazing. Next up is another kind of heavy hitter that I've wanted for quite a while, and that's Dragon View. Super excited to have that, and I got it for a really good price, so I'm very happy. Next up is a couple games from one of my favorite series, even though I'm not the best at them. First one is Mega Man Soccer. I played this at my friend's house when we were probably like 12 years old, and I thought it was awesome. I played it again recently. It's not as awesome as I remember, but it's a game I wanted nonetheless, so I'm glad to finally have it. And another heavy hitter from the same series, and that is Mega Man X2. Now I just need Mega Man X3 to complete the X collection for Super Nintendo. I'm not going to hold my breath on that one because that one's crazy expensive. It's like $250. No way. Hopefully I'll find it in a bin of $10 games sooner or later. Next up is a game with really good timing, because I'll be seeing a movie that is loosely based on this, and that is Marvel Superheroes in War of the Gems. It's basically based on the Infinity Stones, so I should be playing that before Infinity War comes out next week, and hopefully we'll be doing that if I can get all these videos I want to get out. Next one is another beat 'em up I love a lot, Capcom, and that is King of Dragons. I got a killer deal on pretty much everything. I didn't pay sticker price on a single thing in this entire video, but I got some ridiculous deals. I don't know, I was like Jedi mind tricking people, or I just have some good friends and some people from the local groups. But yeah, I got some killer deals, and I didn't pay near what a lot of these games are worth. And this is my last game I picked up for the entire... I think it was the last game I grabbed. It was like on the way out the door almost. And that is Ogre Battle, March of the Black Queen. As I said, I always wanted Ogre Battle, and our friend Justin was actually selling a bunch of games there, and he gave me a killer deal on that. So I was really happy to get that. I just gotten the Famicom one the day before for $5, and no regrets on that, because everywhere else I seen the Super Famicom one, it was like $40, $50, so I got a good deal on it either way, so it wasn't a waste of money there. Yeah, overall, my experience at MGC was awesome, and one of the coolest parts of it was actually something from one of my other biggest fandoms. Was Ernie Hudson from the Ghostbusters was there, and I got him to sign a couple of things. He only was able to sign one thing per person because there was a huge lineup, but Chris, the old ass retro gamer, actually just stood in line with me just for the company and hung out with me for like the hour that I was in line, so I was able to get two things signed by him. And the first was my 360 copy of Ghostbusters the video game, so stoked on that. That's one of my favorite movie related games ever. And next was my Diamond Select Winston Zeddemore figure. Yeah, I had that beforehand, before I knew I was going to be meeting him. I'm that huge of a Ghostbusters fan. I've got almost all of the Diamond Select figures, so that is amazing. Other couple little things I got. There was a Nintendo rep, some Nintendo reps there, so I got a few little like promotional goodies. Like I got some coin pencil erasers, some Switch screen cleaner, glass cleaner things, some Labo markers for the Labo that I'm not going to get unless they're like $2. And these will probably be the coolest thing to me. Super Smash Bros. For 3DS and Wii U. I got 3 drink cozies for that, so that was probably the coolest thing they had. They were rotating stuff throughout the convention. I checked back a couple times, got a couple different things. Like the cozies weren't there the first time I looked. I missed out on some cool stuff, but whatever. It was free promotional stuff, so like I said, whatever. On the way home, I picked up something for Starlink, Battle for Atlas. Haven't played it yet. I got it for Switch. Really cheap, but there's a couple add-on weapons. And the thing that I saw on the way there that made me actually angry, because I've wanted it for years, and suddenly, of course, it's right in front of me when I'm on my way to a convention where I know I've been saving money to go to for months, and that is the Lego Boba Fett Slave 1. I've wanted this thing for years. It's always been ridiculously expensive whenever I've seen it. Passed me by. But with the 20th anniversary of Lego Star Wars, they reissued a bunch of them, or maybe this is like a new version of it. Either way, I'm just happy to finally have that. And last but not least are my prints and posters that I picked up. First up, Ben from the Midwest Retro Gaming Society hooked up all the members that he saw with a little custom poster he made. So that was super cool. We got one last year, so I'm glad to put that with last year's. Second up was there was this table selling a ton of really cool prints, and I don't know how I only ended up buying 2. I probably would have bought more if I had more time. But first of all, I grabbed Final Fantasy II. Not my favorite of the Final Fantasies, but out of the prints they had, that was definitely my favorite art. So I grabbed that, and I grabbed Chrono Trigger. Now I believe they were $7 each or 2 for $10. So I snagged 2, and I was like, I'll come back for more later if I've got money. I did have money, I just never went back, unfortunately. Next up is some stuff I got from the Nintendo reps. It's a Triforce Heroes poster and a Pokemon Super Mystery Dungeon poster. They're whatever. I grabbed a few of them. They were free. And as I mentioned, the Tom Dubois rep guy was there and selling prints. And this is actually what made me realize it was all Tom Dubois art. It was this Castlevania 3 print. Just beautiful. Signed, of course, and I cannot wait to frame that. That is going somewhere really cool. And when I bought the Game Boy game, the guy actually threw this in for free, and it's some more Castlevania art. So I've got lots of frames to buy. At least 4, probably 5. Yeah, so that was everything I got this year at the Midwest Gaming Classic. Oh wait! From the Minnesota group, I got some promo vinyl signs, like some GameCube and Xbox games, and this other one that I believe is all PS2. Some random ass games, just some probably hung on a GameStop or something like that. Cool stuff. Okay, now that is everything I got from the 2019 Midwest Gaming Classic. A ridiculously cool haul as far as I'm concerned. I would like to hear what your favorite stuff out of here was, what you think I should play right away. Let me know, let me know what you think is the best thing in here. I don't even know where to start, honestly. There's a lot of cool shit here. So thanks for sticking around if you stuck around to watch this whole thing, and I'll catch you next time. Have a good one.